I put out a tweet. If you do want to follow me on my personal social media, I'm that Chris Gore. So I'm that Chris Gore on Twitter and Instagram. My Instagram's just, I don't know, weird stuff. I'll show you. But my Twitter, I don't really interact so much on Twitter, and I don't tweet all that much other than promoting things. But every once in a while, I'll put out like, here's some thoughts. And I put out a tweet where I basically just said, nerds, we had a good run. And people asked me, well, like, did something happen? What happened? Like, what's going on? Like, and really my reason for wanting to put that out is I just kind of feel like nerd culture might actually be over. Right. I mean, they've already talked about that. Like, are people sick of superhero movies? I would say with the success of Spider-Man No Way Home, that's not true. People like a well-made superhero film. I think that, the Batman, it might have not done as well at the box office. We still don't have final numbers on the Batman, but I think that nerd culture, like anything cool, because anything cool is just sort of a small group of people are into it, and then it gets co-opted in a corporate sense, kind of like when corporations throw out rainbows in June, right? Like it's so corporate. That started as something organic within the gay community, using the rainbow as a symbol, and now it's been completely co-opted, and it's also been politicized now in a way that I don't know is necessarily, healthy in terms of, keeping this country united, right? It's, but in any case, I feel like nerd culture has just been completely corporatized. Does that make sense? I'm curious what the chat thinks. And it's just like, my thoughts on it are like, go back to the original series of Star Trek, and Star Trek The Next Generation. There was a shepherd of that show, and it was Gene Roddenberry. Whatever you think about him personally, he had a philosophy for the original Star Trek series. And then he was involved, at least in the early stages, the beginnings of Star Trek The Next Generation. But even after Gene Roddenberry was no longer a part of Star Trek The Next Generation, his spirit loomed large. I mean, it was always like, well, what would Gene do? Right. And I feel George Lucas, same thing. He created Star Wars, the shepherd of it, obviously a lot of other creative people involved, but it was always like, this is George's thing. And same thing with, like, we were talking earlier about the Lord of the Rings film. The Lord of the Rings film, the shepherd was Peter Jackson, who deferred to Tolkien, and everything was always like, what would Tolkien do? And I feel like there's maybe even like a disrespect, or well, the original creator did this, but it's modern times now, so we're just going to do it our way, right? And this is why, if Kenobi does fail, which I think Kenobi could be really could be great in the sense that it's bridging the prequels and the original series, but I don't have trust in the people that are shepherding these series, because they don't defer to the original creators. And I feel like whenever you do that, it's just fanfic. It's just fanfic. George Lucas didn't write Kenobi, isn't producing it, is more than likely not involved in much sense at all. So to me, once you get past the original person who created the thing, well, that's fanfic now. Now it's fine. When you look at something like a character like Batman, that's like, God, wait, Batman is like 80 years old, right? Or more than 80 years, 1939. I don't know. Let me check when it was. May 1939. That's a reprint, folks. Okay, so the character's over 80 years old, but people have added to the story. Other writers, the television production, the original 1966 Adam West television series had an impact even on the comics. Certain runs,
he's even gone through several genre changes. And
right. Frank Miller, had a take on Batman. There have been different writers who have had an impact and added to the legacy of Batman, while also respecting, the character's past, right? So,
or what made the character,
exactly. So I want to ask, the chat and your thoughts, Alan. Is nerd culture over? And I say this because I just look at all this stuff and I'm like, looking at the Marvel movies and what's upcoming. I'm not particularly, super excited about the direction that the MCU is going. I'm looking at Star Wars and seeing, there's a lot of member berries here, but is it a story that needs to be told? I'm not sure. And
I'll give you the idea of when it changed for me. It's nerd culture is over because it was taken out of the hands of the nerds and given to a corporation.
Bingo. Bingo. I think that's the answer, is that once corporate culture kind of gets a hold of something, it's like, I mean, this is going to sound like old man yelling at cloud, which is something that happens every episode of this live cast. So my apologies in advance. But it's like, I remember going to the Sundance Film Festival in the 90s, and there was like an energy to it. And it was this sort of homegrown thing, and like, movies being played in libraries. And now you go there and it's just all taken over by brands.
Yeah.
Right. There's the Dropbox Lounge. This isn't a joke. Dropbox has a lounge you can go to and get coffee and, get an offer code to get money off of Dropbox. It's like, it's not about the thing that inspired it. It's taken over by brand marketers trying to reach a demographic. Same thing with San Diego Comic-Con, having gone to that since the early 90s and seen it. It really was a shift around 2007 where it's just like, oh, this is getting too big now. And that was the year that I believe, I forget what hotel I was staying at. I think it might have been the Hard Rock. And Paris Hilton had come to the hotel, and they were offering people money to exit their hotel so Paris Hilton and her entourage would stay. What the hell is Paris Hilton doing at San Diego Comic-Con? She's just there for the scene, right? So it's like, it's this small thing by creators. San Diego Comic-Con was a comic convention.
Yeah, remember what you used to do at a comic convention? You used to buy and sell comics.
It was this tiny, it was a tiny thing that grew beyond, and then sort of like, then it's the corporate interest. It's Marvel and DC and this and whatever, and it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. And then you've got your outside. If you don't even get it past the Comic-Con, you can still enjoy all the outside activations where you'll wait for 2 hours to see some trailer for an NBC TV show and then get a keychain. It's just kind of feels soulless. And this is what I'm feeling about nerd culture. Yeah. We've got this
is the challenge I have for you, because you're going to Star Wars Celebration.
Yes, I am. I bought tickets.
Is it gonna feel like a fan event, or is it gonna feel like a corporate event?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, fans are the ones that create these things, right? And then corporations come on and glom onto it.
It was a celebration for fans. It wasn't necessarily a celebration for Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh, and Saul Stone says, enable super chats, guys. I don't know.
We're getting there.
I think we had a problem with our monetization, not anything nefarious, nothing we did. It was like a technical glitch, and we're trying to fix it. But
it was an accounting thing.
Saul Stone won't be our last live cast. We're doing them twice a week. Next week it'll be 3 times because we're doing South by Southwest. So just come back, and we appreciate that you're thinking about that. Here we go. Let's get to the comments on this topic. Infinite Main says nerd culture got hijacked years ago. HW has Hollywood has squeezed all the juice out. I think you're right. I mean, that's what it's about. It's just gotten hijacked. Yeah. Graham Robinson,
they realize there's money in nerd culture, and so they had to take it over.
It's with everything. There's money in, just as an example, because I have friends who are gay who can't stand the co-opting of the rainbow flag from every social media account by every corporation. It's pandering. It's pandering, and they've co-opted something that started organically, and then it's a corporation looking at and also, by the way, we sell a rainbow shirt on the Film Threat site. If you go to shop.filmthreat.com, it's the shirt is based off the Star Trek the Motion Picture logo, which kind of has a rainbow, and then and there you go. We also have a Film Threat logo as an American flag. So what can you say? Yeah. I don't know that we're not particularly corporate at all. It's like Alan and I and a bunch of very dedicated, passionate fans. But let's look at Graham Robbins' comment here. How many of us took it in the shorts because we enjoyed Star Trek or Star Wars or fantasy or comics or tabletop gaming, and now we're the bigots?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
There. Yeah, we were the oppressed, certainly not the oppressors. It's true. It's weird, it's weird how there's been this bullying that has shifted to now like nerds are being, it's just weird. Now the nerds are being the bullies about certain things. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
very bizarre.
So basically, corporations bought nerd culture and made Twitter its gatekeeper.
Yeah, that's true. Paint Chips says today's Hollywood is producing the equivalent content to late 70s, early 80s network television, sanitized, Love Boat, sitcom level, lowest tard gets a cookie, little effort, cut and paste hack scripts. Jeez, Paint Chips, you should write for Film Threat. I really like that.
Yeah.
I love that comment. That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's something I've just been feeling for a while, and I'm like, because the main thing is that I would always love when Gene Roddenberry or George Lucas would speak about like Star Trek or Star Wars, or there's a lot of that. Tolkien has those famous letters he wrote back to fans where he explains the world that he built with Lord of the Rings, and the people that are creating these things now aren't like that. They're generally hired guns by corporations, and they're supposed to now be the caretakers of these series, but without respect. My real disappointment is Star Trek. Star Trek. I watched the first 4 episodes of Discovery, and just wasn't fully engaged. And I had, watched Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, whatnot, and kind of fell off. I feel like it was just like, it's too much Star Trek. Just for me, that's where I stand. I'm a original Star Trek series, TOS, right? Or STNG. The new Star Trek just doesn't feel like Star Trek. And I think it has to do with the values that were espoused in the original series. And even like, and a lot of people complain. I see a lot of people complain about Star Trek in videos and Picard, which I have not seen, but it's all I see is people complaining about it. And the complaints are things that speak to me, where it's like, oh, I know I will not like this. I absolutely know it's just not for me. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Alan, on that?
Yeah, you mentioned a lot. I'll bring up. I brought up last time Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Where's Walt Disney in the Walt Disney Company now? He was about business. He was a ruthless businessman, but he was still a creative genius. And that creativity and that willingness to test the boundaries of children's stories even is lost and gone.
Right. Well, I'm really loving the comments. So thank you for all your great commentary here. The professional human, the caretakers are just looking for ways to put their mark on whatever it might be. Yeah, it's like if you've ever had 2 cats and there's urination where it shouldn't be, they're marking their territory. Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, etc. Yeah, I don't understand that. I think it's narcissistic in a sense. Like, the original creators created this vast world, and you kind of have to follow the rules of the world. I think the most egregious example is the way that Star Wars was handled in the sequels. I mean, I think what's weird is there are people who love Force Awakens, hate The Last Jedi, or the reverse, but everyone was united in thinking The Rise of Skywalker was terrible. Absolutely awful. Scott Miller says DS9 was classic.
Oh, I love DS9.
A black man as a lead and 2 female as his officers. Yeah, and you know what's so funny?
And who cared?
No
cared?
one was talking about that.
Yeah.
No one talked about it. It was like Avery Brooks, great actor. And his whole story arc with his son is so moving. And it's just, there's actually a really good documentary about DS9 that you have to see. I believe it's out from Shout Factory.
Yeah, and I know it's out there. You can see it, I believe, for free as well.
I think is it called What We Left Behind?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's kind of an innocuous title, but just look up Deep Space Nine documentary. It's on Shout Factory. Really amazing doc. But the point is this: back then, this is the thing. Everybody wants to talk about, DIE, right? Like diversity, inclusion, equity, and it's not as if we're just started doing that now. I think that's naive. Like, it was done a long time ago, right? Now it's just being pointed out to you. And you know, I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. Like we
you know,
talked about
it's to me, it was, you know, in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up, the fight was for equality.
right.
It was the ability to have the same opportunities that white folk had. But now it feels like it's about revenge, and it's about yeah, trying to rebalance the scale. And the problem is it's forced, and it's not organic at all. And
Right.
that's why a lot of the diversity choices feel, you know, they don't feel organic to the story that's being told.
Well, it's like, for example, I think we were talking about this the other day, and I mentioned when Ridley Scott was casting Alien,
Hmm.
did he think to himself, "I want an intimidating black man to be the engineer"? He didn't think that. He just thought Yaphet Kotto was a brilliant actor, you know, and when you know, he's just a great actor. That's why he was cast in the original Alien from 1979.